Welcome back to Where is the Money? So the money is definitely not with the working class right now. If you're the working class and you're the middle class like myself, then you know that these tariffs are definitely a tax on us. They can sell it and spin it the way they want to spin it, but these are not politics at this point. This is reality of what we live every day. So we feel it and see it every time we buy anything in this economy. So don't let these politicians gaslight you to believe it's anything other than a tax on us.
Lately, the government has been going online bragging about all the extra revenue their tariffs are bringing in. And incredibly, some consumers have been cheering them on. So I thought what I would do today is to explain the basics of tariffs and how they work, so that these consumers might have a better understanding of where the money comes from. This is, to the best of my knowledge, how tariffs work. Let's say you have an American company that wants to buy $100,000 worth of t-shirts and sell them in this country for $10 a shirt. That way they'll make a tidy profit. So they search the world over for a t-shirt manufacturer, and they finally find one in China. They send $100,000 to the Chinese t-shirt manufacturer. The Chinese t-shirt manufacturer creates $100,000 worth of t-shirts, puts them on a boat, and ships them to the United States. The minute they arrive at an American port, the U.S. government steps in and says, "We have placed a 25% tariff on all incoming goods from China." 25% of $100,000 is $25,000. So that is an additional $25,000 fee that must be paid. Who pays that fee? Not the Chinese t-shirt manufacturer, not the Chinese government. The American company that imported the t-shirts to begin with has to pay that fee. And then what do? Do they simply eat the cost and continue selling their shirts for $10 a piece? Well, if they do, bless their hearts, they are saints. But most companies are not going to do that. Most companies are going to raise their prices to recoup that additional $25,000 fee. In this case, they would raise their price from $10 per shirt to $12.50 per shirt. When you, the consumer, come along and buy that shirt for $12.50 instead of the usual $10, you are paying the tariff. Tariffs are really nothing more than a sales tax. The government doesn't call it a sales tax because they know if they did, you would go berserk. So they package it as a means of retaliating against countries that are initiating unfair trade practices. But the bottom line is, when everything is said and done, it's a sales tax. And when you go online and cheer the money being generated by a tariff, you're essentially cheering the money being raised by a sales tax. You're saying, yeah, sales taxes work. Raise my taxes some more. Now, if you're good with paying higher taxes, that's fine. You're set. You have no complaint. But if you're like most Americans who are being clobbered by local, state, and federal taxes, the last thing you want to do is pay an additional 25% fee on something you buy from China. And don't try to say, well, they'll just have to buy t-shirts from an American supplier. They could do that, but then the cost of the t-shirt would go up to $25 or $30 per shirt. And Americans don't want that. They prefer the $10 t-shirts. And to be honest with you, I don't blame them. So those are the basics of how tariffs work. Economists the world over say that in most cases, tariffs are a bad idea. They're bad for trade. They're bad for the consumers. Do you now see why?
As an example, this lady had purchased something overseas, some nice outfits and clothes that was delayed, and she never received on time, but she received it after the tariffs went into effect. So let's see what's the process like after the tariffs and if she had to pay any additional costs for her item.
So put a finger down if you ordered clothes for your vacation only to get them after your vacation, but just got hit with a $1,000 tariff tax, which is more than what you actually spent on your order. Yep, I just got hit with a invoice from FedEx for $1,087.37 for outfits that I bought back in April for my birthday vacation that I didn't even get to wear. And I think I maybe kept like 1 or 2 pieces from it because the rest were intended for vacation that I didn't get. But this is now what's happening with our government. So essentially the shippers are now adding what they consider like a brokerage fee to the customers. This was before covered by the vendors, but now it is our responsibility because our government has imposed these tariff taxes. So what used to be just you pay for maybe shipping and you pay for your order and that's it. Now you can get a surprise bill for $1,087 in the mail. And I'll insert like a picture of it, what my order total was. I think I spent like $1,000 flat at ASOS. So my tariff tax is actually more than what my order was. Make it make sense?
So let me understand this. This lady bought these items, paid for it, paid for the shipping, and it was on the way. And now that she received it, she got an unexpected bill for $1,000 or over $1,000 for these items. And it's 100%. It is a tariff. What is that? Tax. She got a separate bill for just that. Insane. Now, I'm no economist. I'm not an expert on CPI reports and job reports and Bureau of Labor Statistics and all of these different data points that comes out that indicate either a recession or the health of the economy. I see the reports. I look at the breakdown of the reports. I see the summary in the conclusion of these reports, but I'm not an expert on how they do everything. I just see the end results. So if you look at it like I look at it, you see the data that they are quoting, and then you hear what they are saying. Oftentimes, those are two different things. Either a political spin on it, or it's a rosier version than what it is. And we're at a point right now that they can no longer spin this economy in a good way because people see it real time in their face.
So we saw stocks take a tumble on the heels of these newly announced tariffs and a disappointing jobs report. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, the stock market had been at record highs because I think investors were focused on this big growth in corporate profits, especially among the biggest stocks in the stock market. So I think the news on the tariffs, also the extension on some of the tariffs, and the uncertainty around tariffs is certainly giving a shock to investors and the stock market and the economy overall right now. But the economy and the stock market have been heading in different directions for a while. Once these tariffs go into place next week, we might have a little more certainty on what that means for price pressure, both for consumers and for businesses that are going to have to pay this and decide whether or not to pass it on to us or eat those profit margins themselves.
And companies have been concerned about this for months. So now that we're going into effect in less than a week, what are companies saying right now and how they're dealing with this?
Well, as your correspondent pointed out, Ford's saying it's going to cost them an additional $2 billion. Walmart is saying we're going to have to pass those costs on to you, the consumer. But other companies have said, no, we're going to try to mitigate that. The question is, where are those tariffs actually being paid? Are they being paid at import, at customs when they come through? And then is that cost being passed then on to the retailer who then passes it on to us? At some point, consumers are going to stop spending if prices rise too high. And we've already seen inflation kind of being very sticky around the 2.6, 2.7% range.
Now, normally if Main Street is suffering economically, that doesn't necessarily mean that Wall Street is doing bad. The rich and poor, right? So the poor people could be struggling, and the rich people with their stocks and their portfolios could be doing excellent. They're doing record numbers, and that's how it's really been before the tariffs, right? Because when I open up my stock apps and I check the US market, the Asian market, the European markets, you know what I see consistently across the board? Red. Non-stop red. Every company down. US markets, S&P 500, Dow, all of that's down. European markets, all of their top markets, guess what? Down. You got Asian markets, guess what? Down. Everything is down. So my question for Trump, my question for the administration, my question for those that voted for this Is the economy better off now? Let me help you out. No, it is not. And how do you think the tariffs is going to affect your everyday life? Put your comments below. Let's talk about it. This is Where is the Money? Talk to you soon.